cooperation in Indus Basin by heading that network on Upper Indus Basin, and also a very great luminary professor, uh, Atik Baswas, Professor Dr. Asit K. Baswas was my mentor while I started a journal in water resources development in Pakistan. And I respect him because he brought his knowledge of systems engineering into water resources management. And I have a lot of regard for Honorable Dr. Arun Shirista for his regional knowledge other than the water. He knows the people who matters. He knows how to get work done. This upper Indus network would have never been initiated in this contentious region without the personal effort and stature of Dr. Arun Chista, to whom we respected in all that country is of the region as a person. So first speaker as given to me would be the opening batsman of this will be Professor Dr. Arun Bhakta Shirista. Dr. Saab, we understand that you can make confidence among the people in the region. So your greatness is not your doctorate or your knowledge. Your strength is the respect you enjoy in South Asia and also in Pakistan. So welcome, Dr. Arun Bishista. Now it is your turn, and there's no time limit to these two luminaries. Thank you. Please, Dr. Arun Bhakta Shista.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jalani. I think that was a very loud, elaborate introduction. I don't know if I deserve it or if my presentation will actually live up to that. But anyways, thanks to you and also thanks to the organizers for giving me this space to present here today in this very important forum. And as the chair, respected chair, has already mentioned, I'll be talking about Upper Indus Basin Network, a science-based approach to foster regional cooperation in the Indus Basin. But before moving on, do you see my slides and can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So as I represent International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD in short, I'm just sharing one slide to introduce my organization. ICIMOD is an intergovernmental regional mountain knowledge learning and enabling center devoted to sustainable mountain development for mountains and people. We work in this space called Hindu Kush Himalaya region, the highlands of, let's say, South Asia and Tibet and Plateau, which is shared by 8 countries, represented here by those flags, starting from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Myanmar, Nepal, and Pakistan in alphabetical, of course. And of course, knowledge is a big part of what ICIMOD does. Now, well, just giving you a little bit of context, a lot has been talked about this already by previous speakers about the space we work in, the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, which is represented here by the darker blue, area. And then what is important for our discussion today is that this is a source of 10 major river basins in this region, which are also represented here in lighter blue color. And as I said, 8 countries share. And out of those 10, 7 rivers are transboundary. And we know them all. I don't need to talk about them. In this highland, the blue area, 240 million people live. And if we count all of them in the 10 river basin, it's 1.9 billion people, which is tremendously large number of people living in this, region. And if you look at it globally, it is 1/4 of the total humanity. So what happens here in terms of climate or other changes could mean direct impact to 1/4 of humanity. And of course, it will spill over this region and also impact rest of the world. But what is important to know is that, in the highlands, the number of people living is not that high. Most of the people in the downstream, right, live in the downstream. And often the downstream look towards the upstream as source of water. that's the reason where we get water. And therefore, most of the decision about the upstream is made in the downstream, in centers, in the capitals, which are not in the upstream. So there is a little bit of skewed reasoning about upstream also, and decision making about upstream is also skewed, and that's true also for Indus Basin, and talk about it a little bit later. Now, diving into the Indus Basin, which is the topic of my discussion and largely topic of today's discussion here. And much has been already said, and I'm talking to a lot of experts. So I don't want to go into too much of detail, but just wanted to show this map, which shows, where the upstream part is, the upper Indus Basin is, and where the lower Indus Basin is. And as has been already mentioned, this is the basin among the 10 river basins, which is the most glaciated. The amount of glaciation in this basin is 35%, which is the largest among the 10 river basins, which is very important for the hydrology. But then what is also important is this very strong upstream, downstream linkage in this basin. Water generated in the upstream is used in the downstream. Basically, that's what is happening. And also feeding, it's not only about the surface water, it's also groundwater, which the upstream water feeds. Talking about Pakistan, Pakistan shares 47% of the basin, largest area in the basin, but most part of the water is generated outside Pakistan, right? And it feeds into 90% of the irrigation needs. And the estimated 60,000 megawatt hydropower potential is also from the upstream. And we all know that the largest contiguous irrigation system in the world is in this basin. But as has been already said, in this study by Emergil et al., they looked at all the water towers, river basins fed by upstream, and they found that Indus is the most vulnerable river basin, number one vulnerable basin in all the river. Based on the water tower index, that means how much water is generated from the melt, and then how much it is the downstream depends on it. So that's very important for us. Now talking about a little bit about climate and water scenarios. Previous speakers also talked about it, and we at ICIMOD do quite a lot of those kind of analysis, modeling exercises, and this is one I would like to talk about, but not into detail in this talk. Upper Indus Basin contributes about 60%. Is contributed by glacier and snow, right? I mean, this left panel, these are three maps showing the upstream part, starting from Kabul and ending up in Salween and Mekong, right? And the top map actually shows the contribution of glacier. The red meaning very high, 80 to 90% of the melt water is generated by glacier melt. The second is from snow, and third is from rain. And you can see this is the Indus, which is largely red or orange, which means very dominantly glacier melt. And then if we talk about snow, it is in this area, which is red, which is Kabul River Basin. So Kabul River Basin is predominantly snow fed. Now, if we look at the Eastern River Basin, these are the tributaries of Ganges. They are mostly rain dependent, right? So that also tells the climate and cryosphere change is very important for Indus Basin. Now, according to our analysis, this 1.5 degree has been much discussed. Even in a 1.5 degree world, which seems quite ambitious target at present, would mean in the upper Indus Basin would be at least 2.2 plus minus 0.4 degrees Celsius, which is very, very minimum kind of, estimate, but we know it's very, very unreal. Now, coming to water availability scenario, I would have to say that, we have a lot of uncertainty right now. Depending on which model you are looking at, it gives very different future scenarios. So it is very unclear at the moment. But when it comes to extremes, more and more studies suggest that more extremes are likely to increase in the future. And this one particular studies I was part of it showed that by the end of the century, the flood intensity could actually double in average in this basin, but in some places it could be more. So these are some of the scenarios we are getting now, which is definitely important when we are talking about the transboundary water management. Now, coming into the topic of today's webinar, it's about the cooperation, right? And a lot of discussion have been about challenges and some about the solutions. My presentation is largely as coming from the knowledge side. It's more about how it can be solved, right? How it can be amicably done, right? But starting with this infographic in the right side, this three-cornered infographic, which I also call vicious circle. Now, the geopolitical sensitivity we all know, and it actually inhibits collaboration between the countries, and collaboration meaning all sort of, not only political, not only water sharing, but also knowledge generation collaboration are not happening that effectively. And because of that lack of collaboration results in incomplete understanding of critical processes in the basin. The climate, the water, these are not, something, limited to political boundary. It spills over the boundary. But then without, collaborative effort, you cannot have complete pictures. There are a lot of knowledge gaps. And those knowledge gaps give rise to a lot of misconceptions. We know there are a lot of misconceptions and provide positive feedback to geopolitical sensitivity. So coming back to the first corner. So this is something which goes on and on unless there is something done, right? So that's why I call it vicious circle. But then speakers have already talked about the Indus Water Treaty, which is, at least, for independent scholar, it is considered as one of the most enduring international agreement on water resources. Dr. Jilani talked about quite a lot, and the last speaker also. And then also we know there is no similar arrangement or anything in the Kabul River Basin. And that's a completely different story. And Afghanistan had their own story. But then, and more scholars actually point to the fact that regional cooperation across sectors and across governing institutions can actually help achieve sustainable development goals, right? I've cited a few, but that actually also gives us a very strong basis to support regional or transboundary cooperation. Now, how can knowledge network like the Upper Indus Basin work in transboundary cooperation? Now, first to start with what is a knowledge network, I think that would be relevant for our discussion. And of course, when we talk about knowledge networking, a lot of those definitions are about IT-based, knowledge networks. But one definition I put here actually also seems relevant for our knowledge network, the kind of knowledge network we are talking about. A knowledge network signifies a number of people and resources and the relationship between them that are able to capture, transfer, and create knowledge for the purpose of creating value, right? So I think that's very important. But what is important actually from my side, I would like to say that knowledge network can provide scientific evidences, credible and co-created scientific evidences, and help build trust among the basin countries. And then actually can help also, remove some of the misconceptions and myths, right? Danube and others have been discussed earlier quite elaborately. Another example is of Arctic Council. Arctic Council also has, I think, 8 member countries, relies very heavily on scientific research conducted by what is known as Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program, which is one of their working group. And the research conducted by AMAP actually contributes to a lot of decision making in Arctic Council regarding environmental sustainability, regarding resource utilization, environmental protection, etc., etc. So I think there are clear evidence, clear examples where knowledge actually helps bring countries together. But it does take time. Now, what is the Upper Indus Basin Network? Upper Indus Basin Network is an informal knowledge and research network of national and international researchers working in the upper part of the Indus Basin. Now, ICIMOD is more, our competence is more on the upstream part. That's why we thought we should focus more on the upstream part, but then not ignoring downstream, because there are where the most people live, and that's where the water use is. So now, just giving you a little bit of history of Upper Indus Basin network. This vicious circle, the geopolitics, lack of cohesion, lack of knowledge, and then this positive feedback. We kind of thought about this back in 2010 and thought that we should do something about it, we meaning EC mode and a few experts from basin countries. So in 2010, we organized what is called the expert consultation in Indus Basin, and that expert consultation actually suggested us to start a long-term program on sharing scientific knowledge and creating a platform. But then, we didn't want to start with it, we wanted to take it slowly. So a UIB monitoring working group was formed in Pakistan, actually, but then there were national as well as a few international partners. That happened in 2012 in Islamabad, in the premise of Pakistan Meteorological Department, which was actually more focusing on biophysical monitoring, glacier, climate, etc. And then this group actually organized a significant, I would say at that time, field visit to Gilgit-Baltistan, participated by 45 organizations from Pakistan as well as some other basin countries, including EC mode. And that gave us a very true picture about what's happening in the upstream, not only the biophysical, but also people, community, how they are facing the challenges. And then there, we actually, converted the monitoring working group into Upper Basin network. And underneath the network, we established 6 technical working groups. I've talked about those groups later on. Then, starting in 2017, actually, we started collaborating with Indus Forum. I don't know if you know about Indus Forum. It's an entity supported by World Bank of a similar nature. And therefore, we started to collaborate. And with them, we organized 4 Indus Basin knowledge forums. These are kind of like annual meeting platforms. Last one happened in 2019. In April 2018, the members decided that, to make it full-fledged regional, right? It was largely Pakistan, although there were some international and regional members, but to make it full-fledged regional. But then to do that, they advised the Secretariat more to draft a governance framework, which we did. And it was endorsed after, of course, iterations and discussions. It was endorsed in January 2019. And the governance framework, I'll talk about it a little bit later, actually has a regional and country structure. And then from then, it has worked and has already established 4 country chapters, the meeting taking place regularly, even during COVID period, using the virtual platform. And I'll talk about some of the progresses made a little bit later. So just a snapshot of that group who actually endorsed that governance framework in January, and then pictures of the 4 country chapters: Afghanistan, China, Pakistan, and India. Now, this platform actually relies on 5 core principles. Of course, it has to be people-centric. The participation and contribution is voluntary. The network has to add value to existing knowledge and adaptive capacities of the key stakeholders. Of course, that's very important. Regional approach is encouraged. And then, very importantly, neutrality. To enjoy the confidence of all, the network will avoid sensitive and conflicting bilateral or regional issues. So these are the core principles. Now, I'll just give you a little bit of idea about the governance mechanism. This is the composition of the country chapter. Country chapter will have a coordinator and co-coordinator and advisors. It could be 1 or a few more. It has 6 technical working groups, These are data framework, climate change and air pollution, cryosphere, surface and groundwater hydrology, hazards and risk and adaptation. And each of those technical working group have lead and co-leads. And these are the members. And then there's one member from ICIMOD and then one from international organization. And knowledge, communication, and gender is a cross-cutting issue. For Pakistan country chapter, ICIMOD country office in Islamabad, and for Afghanistan, ICIMOD country office in Kabul serve as secretariat. For others, the headquarters serves as the secretariat, including for the regional mechanism. So just to give you some, real picture of people here, I will not go into details. We have Afghanistan, China, India, and Pakistan. Currently, the coordinator is Mr. Riaz, Muhammad Riaz, DG PMD, and the co-coordinator is Ms. Hina Lotia, formerly with Leeds, Pakistan, now I think with World Bank, and advisor Senator Nisar Memon is the advisor. So that's how the Pakistan, and then there are the technical working group. This is about the country chapter. Now, the regional mechanism is called Regional Strategic Committee, which is chaired, which has a chair, and then there are 11 members, which are country coordinator and country co-coordinator from each of those 4 countries. One international organization will be member, 2 from ICIMOD, and there will be 6 advisors. 1 is from the country chapter, 1 for ICIMOD, and again 1 from international organizations, right? So you know about the country coordinator and co-coordinator, the members. So in this phase, they are not included here. Just giving the picture of those who have not been presented earlier. The Regional Strategic Committee is chaired by Mr. Khalid Maudatullah. I'm sure you all know him. He was formerly with WAPTA as member water and then with EMI. Our former Director General, David, sits as advisor, and myself also. And then Marianne Neal, formerly with Australian Water Partnership, also serves as an advisor. And we at ICIMOD, we support as a secretariat. Composition. Now, some work within this very short period, January 19 was not that far ago, and most of us, the time has been occupied by COVID pandemic, but still we had progress towards collaboration and shared vision. Very briefly, I have put it under 4, broad categories: common platform at country level. So country chapters had provided a common platform for multiple national institutions to come together and discuss. The multidisciplinary technical working group provides more holistic understanding of issues, challenges, and responses, because often we look at it from silo, climate, hydrology, and forget another kind of discipline. But this platform actually provides that opportunity. In the short period of time, actually, it has also created, a pathway for regional cooperation. Now, because of its neutrality, the countries are, gaining more confidence, at least to discuss in a scientific level, and have started to, suggest that we should, develop joint collaborative research programs. And actually, we have drafted a proposal, which we are going to actually discuss in January, the week of 26, when we are having the annual meeting of UIB network in Kathmandu using virtual platform. In last meeting, actually, the members said that we should have a common vision at regional level. So for that, a theory of change of the Regional Strategic Committee has been developed, and country chapters are also gradually using that into and converting into national, country chapter theory of change. And then we have already started initiation of some collaboration, not many and not too ambitious and big, but because we know we have to start small. The last speaker also talked about some joint, work, but this comparatively is much small, but I think is a very important stepping stone, I guess, in that direction. So joint research by India and Pakistan country chapter on study of climate change impact on livelihoods of upper Indus Basin communities in Ladakh, India, and Pakistan Pakistan. I think that's quite interesting, and this work is going on. And then recently we had a discussion about bilateral, capacity building. We always turn into north for capacity building. I think this platform can actually harness the opportunity within the network, and mutually, build capacity. So Afghanistan and India chapters have discussed and are planning on a training program on hydrological modeling. So these are some of the, early kind of progresses we have made. But what we think the UIB network and the regional, but also at the country level, can go a long way forward. So some potentials for future I would like to submit to you is like on the policy advocacy and government cooperation. Country chapters could take the role of think tanks and provide policy advice to the government. Support respective governments in identifying science priorities and developing important scientific questions. Support government in developing environmental monitoring system considering river basin approach. I think that was also mentioned by previous speaker. Under partnership and capacity building, coordinate with international researchers. There is a lot of interest in the international research community about Indus Basin. But then, we could develop holistic research plan with active role of also local scientists. That's very important, supported by individuals, including youth and institutional capacity building. It doesn't make sense if international researchers come, collect data and go. That doesn't work. So I think we need to make sure that local scientists are very much engaged, including youth. Engage with development partners and funding agency to influence them to prioritize Indus Basin in their development strategy. I think a lot of you were also familiar with this horizon scanning exercise that happened, where 100 important questions about Indus Basin is being finalized. I think we also kind of contributed to that process. A platform for different government bodies, departments, ministries, as well as national NGOs and also communities to come together to create synergies in their effort for collaboration and common understanding of relevant issues. And finally, of course, this is a knowledge network. So outreach and knowledge generation is the most important part of it. So conduct collaborative research to reduce critical knowledge gaps, help reduce some of the existing myths related to climate, cryosphere, and water, and their upstream, downstream linkages, where water is generated, whether, it is climate change or whether it is something else, this could be very much useful to, reduce some of the myths, thereby creating an environment conducive for better collaboration. And then also represent the basin in international fora, dialogues, events to share issues and challenges faced by the basin and advocate for international community to support research and investment for resilience building in the basin. So that's basically what I intended to present here. But before signing off, I would definitely, request all of you to, if you are not familiar with this network, please contact us or contact the country chapter and get familiarized and see how you can be part of it. And as this is an open network, we are open. The network is open to anyone who would like to participate, contribute, and contribute to the cause of this network, and also to the development prosperity of the basin in a voluntary basis. Thank you so much again for the opportunities. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Great sharing. With the time limitation, I think nobody can do better than this. And I also share one comment that your competency and capability in GIS and what great favor you made to Pakistan in flood 2010. While you commented the flood risk is going to increase manifold, we faced this catastrophic effect in 2010. And Your Honor yourself helped without money and urgent basis, a very, very noble cause. You did all scientific support. We like to continue on that. One of our colleagues was raising hand, Mr. Rahat Ali. Is Mr. Rahat Ali visible to the organizer? Can Rahat Ali can explain? At least one question we can take up. Mr. Rahat Ali? So if the questioner himself has got the answer from your presentation,